I'm Leigh Brown. This is Crazy Shit in Real Estate. And today I was actually putting on my reading glasses to write down some notes because I've got Cayla Craft. The woman is full of information, sound bites, inspiration, ideas, and you're just going to enjoy the heck out of this. So enjoy the conversation. I'll see you on the other side. So if you're in real estate and you're listening to this podcast or watching it and thinking, man, I need some more Leigh Brown answers in my life. Well, guess what, friends? I have a new program that is launching right now called Answers.Real Estate, where I will give you every bit of insight I have to help you grow your real estate business, help you better respond to consumers, to provide a more excellent real estate experience so that the next time you land on crazy shit in real estate, you'll have a better solution to whatever you ran into. Answers.Real Estate. There are monthly plans available. You will love it. Get your coaching. Sign up with me today.
Hi, Leigh.
Hello, Cayla Craft. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I mean, I'm ready for you to coach the greatness out of me, but then it's my show. And so I'm just going to be talking about your greatness instead today. How are you?
I love it. I'm ready. I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Because it's so stinking perfect.
What'd you say?
You say you coach the greatness out of this one lady. I was looking at one of your carousels on Instagram. Yeah. Is that your hashtag? You coach the greatness out of somebody?
I need to make that be my hashtag.
Because it's pretty freaking awesome.
I mean, I need to do that. I'm going to steal that from you.
I mean, it's a gift from you to me back to you. So that means it's like, back and forth.
Okay. I got to give to you right now. Let's go. I'm ready.
The bulk of my audience is real estate people or people who are fascinated by the real estate space. And that's why that phrase literally jumped off the screen at me, because right now real estate is being so attacked and realtors are working so hard and the media's out to get them and the politicians are out to get them. And so they don't see their own greatness. And it drives me completely crazy because my mama hen really fires up. They forgot how valuable they are when they're being attacked from all fronts. And so I'm thinking, what a perfect time for freaking Cayla Craft to come on my show. So before we dig into that, tell my audience who you are, a little bit about how you landed over here, and then we'll dig in a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm Cayla Craft. I used to be an ER nurse, and I got involved in network marketing when I was about 23. And it absolutely changed my life. I was able to make a lot of money, and I learned actually by making a lot of mistakes and spending it on the wrong things to then go, okay, I need to, if you read about what all the billionaires invest in, they invest in real estate. So I need to get educated. I need to start learning about this stuff. And I finally bought my first fourplex and really just have been obsessed with real estate investing, learning as much as I can now. Now we have invested in several apartment complexes, and I'm just like so excited about the real estate world. And I just want to share everything that I know with everybody about everything. That's my personality. So
I have to ask, which network marketing was yours? Were you in the ACN video telephones? Was it Mary Kay? Which one were you in?
It was health and wellness, actually. We sold protein shakes.
You sold protein shakes. Okay. Because one of the moms in my text thread, because I think all moms have a text thread of moms. She got into the gummy vitamin things for a while. I can't remember what they were called.
Juice
even.
Plus, yeah, probably.
Yeah, Juice Plus. All of us bought the Juice Plus. Oh, yeah. I don't have the foggiest idea if it worked or not, but we all said yes because we loved her. We loved her kid. And I think that's half the battle in real estate, just like it is in network marketing, is your relationships matter more than the product, even though the product is valuable. But anyway, let's go back to that first quadplex, because I'm always really excited to talk to people who buy their first multifamily, but it's not syndications and it's not apartments. And so I want to talk about the accessibility of the tiny multifamily. And for those of y'all that have not listened to all of the episodes, because we're finishing up season 9 right now, season 10 is approaching, there's hundreds of episodes. And I've talked to investors from every stripe. I think the biggest hurdle for most people in buying the first piece of real estate is thinking that it's too big for them and that it's not something they have access to. And even if the media tells you that everything's unaffordable, first of all, stop listening to the mainstream media. And then second of all, you talk to somebody who's in the space, which is why we've got Cayla with us today to talk about the steps in making real estate a part of your portfolio, because it's those beginning steps that matter most. And also those of y'all that have that gene inside of you that wants to do good things for your community, I'm always going to remind you that the only affordable housing in most markets is the small multifamily owned by individuals. It is not the big apartment complexes. It is not the hedge funds. It is people like me and people like Cayla who own little tiny two-plexes, four-plexes, and eight-plexes who are able to provide affordable housing. And that's a really important part of every zip code in this country. So anyway, let's go back to that very first quadplex. I want to know, so you said that you did some research on all of the super successful people so you could emulate their practices. You see real estate as a common thread. What market were you living in and how did you even take step one? What was step one for you?
Step one was I was actually really blessed because my brother-in-law was a real estate agent at the time. And so his dad was like a super real estate investor. They're now in North Carolina, but this was in Bakersfield, California. So the Central Valley, very affordable. So it's like right above LA. So a lot of people from LA will commute and live in Bakersfield because it's so much more.
You can say Buck Owens. I mean, that's how we all think of Bakersfield.
Okay, there we go. Buck Owens. I forget. Yeah. I forget about that because I don't live there now. So anyways, that was what I started to tell Shane, okay, we need to buy a fourplex. Like all these books I'm reading, it says, start in multifamily. And so I had read Robert Kiyosaki. I listened to Kim Kiyosaki's book, It's Rising Time. I think that's what it's called. And I was like, oh, all right, let's go. So he found me one rather quickly. And just like you said, it wasn't big property that I was looking for. I wanted something that I could pay cash for. And this was just a mom and pop type of situation. They were looking to get it off their hands quickly, and we were able to close within a couple weeks. And my goal with this was actually to flip the property. And that's what we were able to do. And in a year, I made six figures on that deal, selling it to a bigger, real estate investor in the area. That was like more of a buy and hold type of situation. So it was a really good learning experience. We bought it and it caught on fire 2 weeks later.
Like actual fire, like lightning struck or somebody stood
actual fire. There was an electrical thing went down on Thanksgiving Day. And I was like, okay, like this is very different than selling protein shakes. But I'm really thankful for that experience because, it's kind of like when people say something hard happens to you in your life and they go, well, how'd you get through it? And it's like, well, you just get through it. And so I kind of like that my experience started off this way because now I go into everything thinking worst case scenario. And I plan for a rainy day with all of my properties because you never know what could happen. And it's kind of like, I want the best, but I prepare for the worst.
Is that part of why you flipped it instead of holding it was because you were thinking, holy crap, this thing caught fire. I don't want to deal with that. Or was it just the numbers and the opportunity? Or is it both?
Yeah, it was, I knew I wanted to renovate. So that was one thing because then I wanted to raise the rents, right? I knew enough to do that. And Shane had, mentored me in that. And then actually he was approached by somebody who wanted to purchase it. And he was like, if you hold it, I don't know how much longer you're going to be able to get this area. This part of town was it wasn't a great area. And so he was like, this is kind of going to crap and you might as well get out now. And we were leaving the area. So we weren't going to live in Bakersfield anymore. We knew that. And so I was like, okay, yeah, let's get rid of it. And we can make six figures on it. And so that's what we did.
So you like living near your real estate? So
no, now I don't. I live in California right now. I have nothing in California.
That's pretty smart because California is not super friendly to invest in right now.
Exactly. But back then, you have that mindset. It's so scary. I wanted to be able to drive by it every day and check on it and make sure that the property management company I hired was like doing what they said they were going to do. And so I think what I know now is I'm fine with I have in North Carolina, Alabama, Arizona, and those are all quick flights for me, but I have boots on the ground in every area. So I think that's important. As long as you have boots on the ground to be able to go quickly and look at properties, that's what matters to me.
We should talk about that for a second because it's interesting to me how many people use the management of the property as an excuse never to buy it because they simultaneously want to babysit it and then they don't want to have to touch it at all. So they fail to trust a property manager or they think they should manage it themselves and they throw up all of these excuses about it and forgetting that it's probably not going to roll off into the gutter or blow away in a storm. It's probably going to be fine if you find the right property manager. I know that I don't want to go near my properties because I'm way too much of a control freak. I need to let my property manager handle it, which allows me to invest in more properties. So what would you say are your best tips for interviewing and selecting a property manager, especially if you're out of state?
Yeah. Okay. That's a good question. I think always talk to who they're already working with. And I think people, I do that with it. Anytime I'm going to hire anybody, I always ask for referrals and just get on the phone with these people, and not just one person, but at least 3 of their clients, because you can find out really quickly how transparent are they? That's the most important thing to me is communication. I don't want to find out about something that's gone wrong a week after the fact. I want to know, even though you're going to take care of it, it needs to be a text. It needs to be an email sent over to me like, hey, this is happening. Just wanted you to be aware I'm fixing it. I need to have that type of communication. So I want to make sure I'm hiring people like that are good communicators with me. So it's just talk to referrals. I do that with everything, like I said, because they can talk, they can have a good resume, but their clients are going to tell you what it's really like.
That's kind of funny to think about with real estate, because I don't know that I have ever had, and I've been selling real estate for 24 years. I've over 4,000 transactions at this point. I have never once had a seller ask me for a reference. You would think that, obviously I'm that great and I'm that trustworthy. And I am. I've got a lot of integrity and honor, but still, at some point, you think you're going to pay me a large sum of money when we successfully get through this process. You probably should really talk to one of my past clients. Maybe they think,
what's interesting is I got there not through something bad happening with a property management company at all, but I got there by hiring somebody else years ago to help me out. And I didn't check references and I ended up getting screwed in the deal. It was something with marketing. And that taught me, one of my best friends says, well, didn't you check referrals? And I said, no, I didn't even think of that. I just, their marketing was great. Their branding was great. And I learned from that moment. This was probably 10 years ago, but yeah, time blends together. But that's where I always ask now.
We all read reviews on Amazon or Home Depot, wherever you're buying something. I cheat the reviews. If there's no reviews at all, I'm really nervous immediately. If there's 2 reviews, I'm very nervous. If there's 40,000, I already feel good that 40,000 people had something to say. Mm-hmm. And then I can start looking at it. And then my husband, who's an engineer and Mr. Negative, he says he's not. He goes for the 1-star reviews. He only reads 1-star reviews because he wants to know if they have a legitimate beef or if they are just nasty pants. Are you just like my husband then?
I do the same thing.
I like to read the 5-star people. I'm looking for the positive people who are like, I love it. It's wonderful. And he's over here, who's complaining about it? I'm like, you shouldn't shop at all. But I think that approach probably does make sense, because if somebody feels compelled to tell you why they hate you, it's possible there's a little validity in that. But the reference piece is so big, especially if you're out of state. So you said you've moved from buying real estate locally from your brother-in-law's dad to buying in multiple states. The first time you bought out of state, what was your biggest concern and fear, and how did you overcome it?
My biggest concern, and just really not understanding the market. And so what I did was I partnered with somebody who really understood the market, and they had a long track record of being successful in that market. And then, I think that eased my fears. And so I would say for anybody that's kind of struggling with that, it is really important to go with somebody who has a track record of success, especially in this economy right now. Again, I think it's maybe just years of being in business that my trust, is low. I gotta, I'm a very positive person, but it's I just want proof, all the time. So
President Reagan said, trust but verify. That's you, right? Trust but verify.
I used to be very naive. And so I think I've just gone to the opposite side of that now. But I think finding somebody who really understands the market, maybe it's a real estate investor, a real estate agent that can really help you. We're actually in the process right now of moving out of California up to Minnesota, not because anything's better there politically, but because my son's playing hockey in high school. And so we're moving up there for him. And so first thing I knew to do is, okay, I'm going to find a real estate investor friendly agent in the area. And, we scoped him out. He understands like how I work, seller financing, all the things. And he understands the markets of, okay, this is going to be good resale value. This is a potential, like there's not a lot of rents in the area, like blah, 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 blah. So always find somebody who really knows what they're talking about. You can tell by the lingo. Usually they know what they're talking about. And how I ended up going with this guy was he knew everything about seller financing, which is one of my favorite things to do. And so I was like, okay, yeah, we're going with you. And we ended up getting a great deal and moving very soon.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I love 1031s. That's the primary investment people that I work with. We're managing the 1031 process, which is fun and exhausting all at the same time. But also, it's not the same thing as knowing how seller financing works, because they may be in the same bucket, but they may not be. I had a client approach me about seller financing, and I said, I'd love to help you. However, I don't have the foggiest idea what this should look like. So let's find you somebody else who does. And then I'll just pay attention in the background. I will learn something because I like to learn, but I certainly can't pretend to understand it. But that is a way a lot of investors figure out their investment pieces, especially when they're not covered up in money or they don't have the available credit line, or in an economy like we're in right now, where the banks are very nervous about their capital and where their investments are upside down. Seller financing may be the best option. So tell us about how you got started in that space. Where did you get your education? Who helped you figure out what questions to ask? And maybe for our listeners and viewers who've never done a seller financing deal, what questions should they ask to find the right kind of expert?
Well, I think number one, when you understand the market and you network in the market, you're going to be in that world of people talking and chatting about what they have available to them. So I think the number one strength that I have is I'm a networker, which is probably my network marketing background. So I'm constantly networking with people and investors in the area. So I have a pulse on what's happening and what's going on. So if you want to get into real estate investing, you need to be networking in the market you want to be in. Even if you don't know anything, go to the meetups, go to the hangouts, listen to what people are talking about, get to know other investors in the area, because that's the number one way that you'll actually start to learn about some creative financing options. Is you'll hear it. I mean, that's how I learned about it, was I heard somebody else talking about it, right? And it happened to be, my brother-in-law's dad. But I'm listening in and I'm like, tell me everything, And what I know about successful people, and I'm sure you know this too, Leigh, we love to teach people. We're not gatekeeping. It's like, we're just going to give it all. This is what your podcast is about. It's like giving it all out, right?
It's abundance versus scarcity, right?
Yes. And successful people don't want to put a thumb on you and keep you down. They're going to try to bring you up as much as possible. And so, ask the questions. I think when I first got started, this was like, 10 years ago when I bought the first fourplex, I had grown up really poor. And so I had this mindset. First of all, I was struggling with a little bit of scarcity mindset, had a lot of money, but I was like, oh my gosh, I never want people to think I'm dumb. And so I wouldn't ask the questions. I would pretend like, they talk about something. And I'm like, yeah, uh-huh. And I would go back later and, like Google it and find out what the heck are they talking about? And what I know now is don't act like you know what you're talking about. Really go into the situation and say, I have no idea. Can you repeat that? And I'll even ask people, can I record this? Because sometimes it takes me like 3 times to hear something and really understand what you're talking about. And they'll say yes or no. And like really just go into it, like knowing people want to help you, because most real estate investors are also networkers as well. So they know that they might be one deal away from their next level in investing, because you might know somebody who knows somebody, right? And so just be yourself, have fun, and always know that you're bringing value to the conversation. Even if you're taking a lot, you might be adding value by encouraging them and saying, wow, like you're amazing. You're so wise in this. You should post that online. That's what I always try to do. When somebody teaches me something, I'm like, you need to put this on a video on social media because you could create a whole brand around this. I know that's what my expertise is. So, I try to always give in those conversations. And so that is how I learned about creative financing, to bring it back, was just being in the room with people who knew more than me. And I got connected. I was in a mastermind of all different types of investors. Some were venture capitalists, some were multifamily, assisted living, like all different types of investors. And they were really the ones that taught me how to structure creative financing deal. And, I had to pay like 40 grand to get into that room. But again, like I'm always paying to get into the rooms to know things and to meet people that I wouldn't know otherwise, because, it shortcuts the learning process. Because then my next deal I did was with somebody who already had $800,000 in her portfolio, multifamily, under seller financing. And so the next deal I did it with her. And I got to see the ropes of exactly how she did it. And it was one of those things where mom and pop were selling, and she knew that she could acquire it and then sell to a hedge fund in 5 years. So she already knew her exit strategy. So when she created the deal, she knew she could do a balloon in 5 years because we'd already be out, and so it would be easy to pay them off. Yeah.
So where did you find these groups? You mentioned meetups and hangouts. I know there's Facebook groups. What's the best way for a viewer or a listener to find investors in their area?
Yeah, I think there is a meetup app too. So like you could download the meetup app and you could see all different types of meetups that are happening locally. Go on Facebook groups and search. You could say, I've already joined a couple in Minnesota. I don't know if I'm going to invest there. I honestly probably won't, but I've already joined quite a few of Facebook groups. And all I did was go Minnesota real estate investors, and a ton came up. So I joined a couple because I'm already going, I got to network my way in here. And that's what I would do, right? And again, glean from these people, but introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm brand new here. I don't really know what I'm doing. People, again, will go, hey, because guess what? People are always looking for people to do the grunt work.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to make the calls. I don't want to do the door knocking. So they'll hook you up and tell you exactly what to do because you're going to do the grunt work for them. And don't be below grunt work. When I first started wholesaling like a couple of years ago, I was making the cold calls, even though I could afford to hire people. I eventually did that, but I was at first doing it myself because I was like, I want to learn the ropes. I want to know exactly what people are saying, what the objections are that we're coming up against. And so be willing to look dumb, because every successful person at one point in their career looks dumb. Like they didn't know everything at the beginning. And so don't compare your chapter 1 to somebody's chapter 12, right? And get in the room.
My team can clip that out for a little short. My goodness, that's perfect. Don't compare your 1 to someone else's chapter 12. That was good. But it's I love the overlay there with actual real estate practitioners, because one of the things that I can't stand that we use in training and have used for 50 years is when you tell somebody new to the business, somebody says, well, how long have you been in? Well, it feels like forever. You don't have to lie and you don't have to be gross. You could say, I just got my license. I'm learning and I'll figure things out. I'm going to talk to my broker. I mean, the honesty of that is absolutely an attractant to people. And especially, like you said, those people who need help would love to know that there's somebody who wants to learn. The world right now feels less curious than maybe it should be, because people get so determined that they know it all, and they become very determined to never admit they need to grow. You find somebody who wants to grow, man, let's go. And frankly, I need a grunt person. It had not occurred to me to go to my local investors group and find some enterprising young person that wants to go do what I need done. So thank you for that little tip there, sister. So I will go check that out, because also you mentioned a little pearl there for everybody listening. Even if you don't know everything about the topic, you probably bring something to the table. And that something that you bring to the table could be a relationship with a friend from high school. It could be a little glimmer of knowledge that you got because you went to the planning and zoning meeting. There's all these different places that information resides, and just figure out what you can gather and then bring forward. It may not be dollars and it may not be the knowledge about the space that you're in, but knowledge from other spaces all adds up. That was a wonderful reminder to people. And I just think if people would pay more attention to what they've learned and not beat themselves up because they're new to it, you could grow faster.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you have to sell yourself on you every single day. Be rooted in who you are. Sometimes people just need a caring person in their life. You're like, if I don't have a lot of skills, I don't have a lot of talents, but you know what? I'm a good person. I'm a caring person. Be the person that, will, one of my friends, actually, she's become a really close friend, and now we have investments together. But when I first met her, she knew way more about multifamily than me. And I noticed people were just flocking to her. Like, she couldn't get a word in edgewise. Like, she couldn't even go to the bathroom. So I kind of took it on, and here I am. Like, I'm a very successful person, but I was like, I was willing to go, like, be like an assistant in that moment and be like, okay, guys,
you were her handler.
I became her handler. Like, I barely met the girl, and I was like, I could feel like she needed a break. So I'm like managing the room. I'm like, we're going to take you to the restroom. I literally became her bodyguard in that moment. And she was like, oh, and we just bonded. And she was like, I want to teach you everything, and it was just that little thing. I didn't expect for her to teach me that way. I just felt like, I'm going to give. Like, it was like the mama bear in me, or you called her the mama hen, like, okay, let me go and take care of you. And now we're, thick as thieves. So you always bring something to the table. You need to know who you are, because when you start to get into an industry like this, you got to have thick skin. And if you don't know who you are and you're not grounded in that identity, like, you're going to get rocked and you'll give up. Right. So that's the biggest thing I can know. Everything about real estate investing, you will figure out along the way. Nobody knows it all, but the one thing that nobody can teach you is who you are. You've got to figure that out for yourself. You got to be having that confidence. Confidence is an attractor factor, and so sell yourself on you every day. Most mornings, I don't wake up and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm this amazing person. I have to sell myself on me again, of like, okay, like, even coming on this podcast, I'm like, okay, do I have enough to say? I listened to some of your podcasts and I was like, oh my gosh, but again, I got to sell myself. Well, what can Cayla bring to the table? Let's go.
Look, Cayla is so good. I put on my readers and got my ink pen to write down to sell yourself on you every day, because that is an amazing comment that you made. And I don't know why my phone was not on mute. So now I've got to figure out who unmuted my phone. But that's great. So I love this aspect of finding out where you give value. And it doesn't even have to be dollars and knowledge. It can just be the ability to care for the situation somebody's in right at that moment, leads to dollars and opportunities. I mean, if there's one thing realtors have to be learning right now, it is that if you're only focused on the dollars, you're going to get really, really beat up as the markets change. If you're focused on what you bring, your service mentality, and how you can create fair trades, the money will figure itself out. It always does, even if sometimes it takes a minute, but it does. Now, you know that this show is pretty much about the crazy side of real estate, and I've already taken you down 4 different directions because you are amazing. So tell me something that you've encountered since you became a real estate investor and you decided to get in this space that knocked you back on your heels and you said, never saw that coming. What was the biggest surprise, crazy thing in your real estate life so far?
Okay. I know I've been thinking about this question. So I started a multifamily fund back in 2022. I did my first one. And I have a very good network of people. And I committed 10 million into this fund. So we were doing a fund of funds model. Okay. And I committed 10 million. I've had soft commitments. And again, this is my first time ever raising capital, taking other people's money, but people had been asking me for years, Cayla, I want to invest with you. I want to invest with you, which is why I started the fund. And I really believed like people do what they say they're going to do in that moment. I thought, oh yeah, I'm like, so I even had one person soft commit $1 million, left my house, said I'm going to give $1 million. And they said, when do you need it? I said, oh, it's not going to close for another 2 weeks. So as long as you get it in before then. Anyway, the very next day, the property it was 2 properties that we were closing on. It was in Raleigh and one was in Charlotte. And they were going to be like, anyway, under the same fund. Mm-hmm. And that one caught on fire. So I mean, why do I have a thing with fire? I don't know.
This is the second
have a thing with fire. Second time. Catches on fire. And obviously I have to call back every person that gave me soft commitments and say, hey, we're pulling out of that deal. We're still going to get the one in Raleigh, but the one in Charlotte's done. We're pulling out because it happened to actually be the second fire. Like, so we're like, something's wrong electrically, like we're out. Okay. Obviously we still needed all of that up front. Like I still needed everybody to give the same amount. It's not going to change the structure of the deal, that much. Everybody was still going to get the same returns. Anyway, so I found out very quickly how important it is to get people to sign the paperwork, wire same day, like automatically, like if you're in, sign right now. Like there's no thinking about it. Like once they walk out the door, it's probably over. And so every single one of my investors pulled out that day. I had to call them and say, and I had 2 weeks to try to come up with $10 million. I didn't sleep every night for 2 weeks. I ended up only being able to raise 500 grand. Part of that was my money going into it. And yeah, I learned a lot because it was like, wow, like things can shift quickly. Had I already got it done, contract signed, they couldn't have backed out. And yeah, so it was really rough because I didn't want to lose my faith in people. You know what I mean? And so that was the hardest part for me, is like really dealing with the emotional side of things of like, wow, like I'm the type of person, like if I said I'm going to do something, it's going to happen. For instance, a couple of weeks ago, all of this moving to Minnesota is like super last minute. This was not a planned thing. It was like, Cooper's got to go. Okay, we got to move. And so we didn't have plans to like go and buy a new property. And also I had a capital call on one of my venture capital deals that I'm in. And it was like, yeah, it was like a perfect storm. And I was like, oh my God, I don't have the extra $100,000 right now. Like I had 48 hours to come up with for the house and then this health and wellness deal. And, it was fun. We ended up being able to do it, like, but I had to like move things, sell things, like go crazy for 48 hours to come up with 100 grand. Most people would have just been like, I'm going to call and say I'm backing out. And me, I'm like, no, like I signed on the dotted line. I have to figure out a way. And even my husband was like, this is nuts. Like people will understand our situation. I'm like, absolutely not. And then it ended up happening because when you decide, right, that you're going to do something, all of a sudden God like makes all the people come together and it like perfect timing. And it just ends up working out because you decided to follow through on your word. Now I had to realize I can't hold people to that same standard. So that's, I think, the biggest thing, the craziest thing that's happened to me is like, okay, take people, like right here, love them for where they are. Not everybody's going to have the same level of integrity. And I'm not going to hate them for it, right? Because I'm not going to, right? I'm not going to hate them for it. I'm not going to change who I am over it. Now I go in eyes wide open to the situation and just go like, okay, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it here. I'm the one giving you the opportunity. Like this is an invitation to change your life. It's not going to change my life. It's really not going to change my life. It's going to change your life. So either you want to do it or you don't. Moving on to the next person. And I just don't take it personally anymore. But that was really hard. Like I seriously did not sleep for 2 weeks. It was crazy.
Well, you're talking in numbers that can cause anybody to have heart palpitations because it's so big and you had it chunked down and then the chunks went away. And friends, if you're watching.
I had to call and say, 10 million is not happening. It's absolutely not happening. And she goes, well, the main fund, she was like, oh no, there's still a way. And I'm like, no, like
legit, it's not there.
I have tried everything I can, like that I'm coming in at minimum, like 500. And she's, anyway, so that was also, I think after that moment, I always under deliver when I say I'm going to bring in capital. I'd be like the minimum. I always say the minimum to get into the deal. And then if I bring more, great. But yeah.
But for my practitioner friends out there in real estate, this is no different than you operating with clients. When you're operating on a bunch of verbals, you are going to get undermined so frequently. Yep. And so you need to look at how important it is to have the client agreement signed as early as possible in the relationship so that you have some protection that they actually intend to work with you. And if they don't want to, that's okay. Let them go. Because as you said, the minute they're out the door, they're out the door. And that's okay. If they're not going to work with you, you're better off knowing that up front. But if they're going to work with you, it's okay to ask the other side to commit. That's a lesson in life for all of us. I mean,
yes,
it applies to everything. Commit. And then once you commit, stick it out. As one of my previous podcast guests said, Tanya says you got to pick it and you got to stay with it and you got to really get drilled in. And that's what this is about, is commitment and sticking through. So Cayla, if somebody wants to come follow you or learn from you or find out about how your funds work or all of the different opportunities that you offer to help people find their own greatness and you'll get it right out of them, what's the best way for them to find you?
They can follow me on social media. I'm Cayla.craft on all platforms. So Cayla.craft. And because they're listening to your podcast, they might like my podcast. It's called Crafted Entrepreneur. And I talk about all of the things that come along with entrepreneurship and, mindset, marriage, all of the stuff that we kind of go through. So this was so fun being on your show.
Well, good. I'll come on your show sometime if you want and we'll talk.
Yes.
But I have to ask you though, since you're podcast world, have you ever listened to Blake on Confessions of a Crappy Christian?
No. Should I? I've never even heard of it.
She's really good. And so she's got the entrepreneurial mindset, and so does her husband. And they go through the range of topics is all over the place. I kind of feel like if you listen to her, you're going to want to be her new bestie. So you should go check that out. That's our extra gift to you. You'll have my podcast, you'll pick up Cayla's, and now you go pick up Blake's. And, one day I can't wait to talk to her, but I'm like 15 years older than her. So she talks to younger people, but she's fascinating. So anyway, appreciate you coming on the show. And as usual, listeners, all of Cayla's links and handles are in the show notes for this episode. So if you're out walking the dog or sweating to the oldies, don't stress out about it. Everything's available so you can connect. In the meantime, say something nice below or write down your favorite Cayla Craft quote, because I've got mine written down here, and subscribe for more, and we'll see you next time. By the way, friends, don't miss my brand new coaching program at answers.realestate, where you can have access to Leigh Brown, submit your questions, have them answered, meet like-minded professionals, have an entire library to help you build your business no matter what happens in the market. Get signed up today. I promise you'll be glad you did. So if you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe to this channel, turn on the bell, and catch another amazing episode by clicking above. Crazy Shit in Real Estate is also available on all of your normal podcast apps. So if that's where you like to hang out, go find me, click subscribe, and most importantly, leave me a review that says you think I'm awesome, my guests are awesome, or this content is just exactly what you were looking for. And then, by the way, if there's something you need, you want to learn about something, you can comment below anytime. You can also send me a direct message if you need to remain anonymous. No judgment. But anyway, I'll only judge if you forget to subscribe and click. I'll see you next time.